I really think Gemini would be more successful if they didn't publicly release any models and you just used it invisibly.
Powers Google search and
just powers your devices. You never question it. You never even think like, oh, how does this compare to DeepSeek? Like none of those questions go through your head. You just use it.
All right, everyone, welcome to Agents Hour. We are going to do the news. We're a little delayed this week, but I'm excited because it was going to be a short week of news, and then a lot has happened in the last couple days. Let's start with a more thought-provoking question, because I think as we talked about factories, some of this stuff starts to sound like it might be kind of familiar. So Elon Musk had a tweet where he responded to someone and said, "This is exactly right. Source code is on the verge of becoming like assembly. Next step is getting rid of source code entirely and just making an efficient binary directly with AI." So what do you think? Is source code becoming assembly?
I think in some ways it is, for sure. Especially when you start having autonomous agents work on your code base and things like that. You know, we mentioned this in the workshop, but we're also like just kind of believing it firsthand, which is like, if you have some evidence of trust in your autonomous factory or whatever, then you don't really care about the source code as much because you do trust the process. And then eventually the code is not really important. It's the actual loops and all that produce the code. I don't think we're fully there internally here at Mastra, but we're like definitely believing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think long-term we will get close. I think the challenge right now is there's levels to it. There are certain things that are low risk. And if it's lower risk, just ship it. If you can have enough trust in the system and it's a lower risk, lower blast radius, just let the agent ship the thing. If it is underlying platform stability, framework level, things that could really screw things up, if it doesn't have strict oversight, don't let the agent ship that. Review that, test it, like do the manual thing. So I think there's like this sliding scale, and I think the scale is going to change over time of like what percentage can you automate and what percentage do you need to really understand and handhold. But I do believe over time it'll become closer to a pretty high percentage of code can just run autonomously with, I would say some human steering, some human oversight. I don't think engineers are going away. I think the job role is going to be changing a bit, but I could argue that you're going to need more engineers because the factory isn't going to be perfect and it's a long ways from being fully autonomous.
Yeah. And like, dude, you have to debug these things still. And so I don't know, shipping a binary, if something goes wrong, it's going to be a bitch to debug. Yeah. So I think like source code is still important, but maybe you are far removed from it.
Yeah, and I think the factory analogy is kind of good in a lot of ways because if you think about it, we're like an industrial revolution of factories right now, right? It's like it's very manual. You need people there monitoring and like gating every part of the factory. But over time, it'll become more automated, right? And so that might not mean you need less people. It just might mean that those people can do so much more.
Yeah. Like we've been running our factory on open source. We have shipped some bugs. Like I found many bugs yesterday in our release, which am I pissed and like never going to use the factory again? No, it's just now I have to up my QA and that part of the quality assurance of the factory. I'm still going to use the factory, right? Like I just have to make the outputs, make sure they're high quality. There's a whole dance that's going on. Tune in.
So this next section is called My Model Hacks Someone Too. OpenAI had a model that breached Hugging Face, right? And then eventually they came back and said OpenAI also broke into 3 other accounts at 3 separate unknown services. And one of the other accounts was used for data storage. And then Anthropic came out and said, in a review of our cybersecurity evaluations, we found 3 incidents in which a Claude model reached the internet. So it's like, our models are dangerous too.
Yeah.
And then this came out, which I thought was hilarious. So this was on July 30th. Felony bench because they publicly admitted to felonies. And it's like, if it's the model, but it's not the company, like who's responsible for that felony? Who pays?
Yeah, right.
So it said Anthropic 3, OpenAI 1. And then, of course, updated said confirmed 3, suspected 5 total. So now OpenAI is leading the felony benchmark, which I thought is kind of funny, but also kind of scary at some point as well.
Yeah, I don't know when it became cool to hack things, but I guess that's the trend between these 2 companies right now.
I think they want the public to perceive them as having the most capable, most dangerous model.
Yeah.
And apparently hacking when it's not supposed to is a sign of danger.
When did dangerous become capable? Like that narrative is just now it's like you need to be scared of this stuff.
Well, I think that's always been Anthropic's game, is to scare you of it. OpenAI is kind of not quite as forward with it, but they also want to scare you a little bit too. But Anthropic has leaned into that forever. I mean, wasn't Dario saying it's going to take all your jobs? This was like 2 years ago, and he said in like 1 to 5 years. Well, it's been 2 years. I don't think it's taken all our jobs yet. So
no,
our humans' demise has been overstated. There's a ton of open weight models that came out: DeepSeek, Qwen, MiniMax. Let's talk about it a little bit. So this is from July 31st. DeepSeek V4 Flash is now available in public beta. It benchmarks very well, and it's super cheap, as you'd expect DeepSeek to be. But you can kind of compare it. It's very comparable, like beats GLM 5.2 in most tasks, comparable to Opus in a lot of tasks, Opus 4.8. So it is a extremely cheap, capable model. It's not frontier, but as we've seen with a lot of these open models, it's very close. We also had Qwen 3.8 Max, and this one, again, very similarly, benchmarks really well. I don't think it's quite as cheap as DeepSeek, but I think it maybe benchmarks a little bit better than DeepSeek. So it's actually like potentially one of the most capable open models. Some people have been running tests, right, between Opus and GPT-5.6 Sol, Qwen. This is just like a Angry Bird test, right? And the game that it produced was extremely good, and you could see the price. API cost for Opus was 25 cents, Sol was 15 cents, and Qwen 3.8 Max was less than 3 pennies, which is incredible, because it basically benchmarked it that the game was as good as Sol's version. So Opus 5 was the most expensive and lowest rated. And again, I don't know exactly how they did the rating of this, but you can check out the tweet and look at it yourself. And finally, MiniMax H3 is now publicly available. And I've seen a lot of people just posting like videos because it's like a fully multimodal model. And some of the videos are pretty cool. I think it's the most capable. I've seen some posts saying it's the most capable open video model on the market.
Open models are cooking, dude.
Yeah, open models are apparently here to stay.
Get yourself an Alibaba cloud subscription, $100 a month. You can try all these models as they come out. 3.8 is already on there. Try it, dude. Try it.
So the thing about open models is we're doing a lot with a recent feature that we released called Trace Intelligence. And we do a lot of like inference behind the scenes, analyzing traces, really like doing a bunch of different like deterministic and some ML pipelines and then some inference in there, right? And I basically told the team, like, we should default to using an open model and only use a frontier model when the open model doesn't work, because it's just cheaper. So as long as it's like latency-wise fast enough, which is a question with open models sometimes, and it's cheap enough, we should be using open models when we can, because why pay extra when you don't need to? And for most tasks, you don't need frontier level intelligence. And for some tasks, you do.
Yeah, and if you don't want to use Ali Cloud or whatever, OpenRouter has the same models, but you should be using them or trying them out at least.
Yeah, at least put it in the mix. If you're building an agent, why not try an open model? You're probably going to save a bunch of money. But then there's, maybe a catch, that open weight models will not be safety tested under the new AI regulations. And my question is, does that mean they're not going to be allowed? Does that mean that enterprises aren't going to be able to use them? Is the government going to try to provide a stamp of approval and basically like blacklist enterprises if they're using models that haven't gone through safety testing? But also I saw this joke of President Trump saying, or someone from the administration reaching out to the open model companies and say, will you submit your models for testing? And them saying, it's available on GitHub. You can just do it. Like you can test it. You can do the safety testing. It's open source. And then saying, no, but will you submit it to us? And they're like, no, it's available. Just go download it. Do you not know how to
face, bro?
Yeah. Do you not know how to download the model and run it and test it? Like, go ahead, test it if you want. It's open. Anyone can use it. It's free. And then they're like, nope, we're not going to test you. So it was a kind of a funny joke, but also it's open. Why not just run the tests on it? It's available. Yeah. Anyone can use it.
Because of bureaucracy, dude.
Exactly. Because they're not paying enough to, all the campaigns like OpenAI and Anthropic, which, it's a bit scary.
Like, share, and subscribe.
And follow us on X.
And tell your friends.
And their friends.
I mean, we're not begging.
Well, maybe a little bit.
Subscribe to Agents Hour every Monday, noon Pacific.
All right, so we have the price and performance wars. July 30th. OpenAI made some major price cuts. So 80% drop for Luna, 20% drop for Terra, and then Sol got fast mode. But you can see now the cost is way down for GPT models compared to Gemini, Claude models.
I think some people are dailying max thinking with Sol, and it's still cheaper than alternatives, which is crazy, dude, honestly.
This was a big move. I mean, this was a pretty bold move, right? Like they cut it pretty drastically, at least for, Luna and Terra. And then some people talking about it, GPT-5.6 Luna is about as cheap as GPT OSS 120, despite performing around as good as GLM 5.2. And then it does kind of like tease, it's kind of embarrassing for Google. It's like cheaper than Gemini 3.5 Flash while performing better than Flash Full, or cheaper than Flash Lite performing better than Flash Full.
It is embarrassing for Google.
Yeah, where is Google in Gemini here? Is Google cooked? I don't know.
Oh, man.
Because Jeff Dean from Google fame has left. So they announced that they're founding Discovery Loop, a public benefit corporation whose mission is to automate machine learning, right? So basically left Google. And then you have Google DeepMind CEO, Demis, has stepped down to just become chair. So he's no longer, I'm assuming, going to be as actively involved. Now, my question is, was that kind of forced from Google because Google's been so far behind? Does Demis just not want to play the game anymore and just decided he's done enough?
I mean, they built the whole organization around him. There's a London office for that reason. I believe he's in London. I saw this really funny picture of him becoming a chair. Like a legit chair.
Dude, I saw that too. It's like Demis is becoming a chair, and it's like 5 screenshots or 5 like images of him like slowly becoming just a chair.
Someone commented in our last live stream when I was like, who the fuck cares about Google or Gemini? And someone was like, Apple users do. And that might be true. But once again, I will say this once again. Who the fuck cares about Gemini, dude, honestly?
And then, you see this hard not to read these departures as Google giving up on winning in AI versus Anthropic and OpenAI. So it seems like GCP with its TPU, GPU infra seems like Google's most valuable asset in the AI race. And then just partnering with Anthropic and OpenAI to run on top of it. But my question is, OpenAI and Anthropic are building their own chips now. So you're playing a game that eventually they're going to look and say, we're big enough. We don't necessarily need you anymore. It seems like every AI company wants to own the whole stack, from the chips to the data centers to owning their compute, owning the model, like basically owning the entire stack. And then even the applications built on top of it, right? Anthropic is competing with the people that use its API, building applications, competing directly with them. So
I really think Gemini would be more successful if they didn't publicly release any models and you just used it invisibly. Like that way, no one has to compare you to a benchmark or anything. It just existed, but you never knew it was there.
Powers Google search and
just powers your devices. You never question it. You never even think oh, how does this compare to DeepSeek? Like none of those questions go through your head. You just use it. But now we're always in a benchmark maxing competition with everybody, and you keep getting owned.
Yeah. And I do know a lot of consumers, they have such distribution. It feels like they can't really lose the game. They're obviously way behind not winning, but they have so much distribution, right? I know a lot of consumers that do use Gemini Studio or whatever the desktop app is, right? Because it's just they already use Google for Gmail and Google Workspace and all that stuff. But feels like they're giving up, or maybe maybe all these departures they're trying to bring in new blood.
Maybe.
Because they want to they want to try to win, but I haven't seen any evidence of that yet.
Dude, if Google never made another model, I would still use Google. You know what I mean? I'm still going to use all the products. So it doesn't even matter to me, at least.
There was a time period where my Google usage was way down. I think overall my Google usage is way down from where it used to be. So a lot of times I will use, I go back and forth between Claude Desktop and ChatGPT. I like to compare both, but I would say I bet my Google usage has gone down 75%.
Yeah.
I still use it for some things, for quick things I want an answer to. And I do find that the AI is pretty helpful. If I want references and I want links out to things, it pulls it all in, cites it. I can go to those sources if I need to. I do feel bad for anyone that gets a lot of traffic from Google because I almost never click through to the sources anymore. At all,
true.
ever.
I feel like my Google usage has gone up since they integrated it into products.
I would say my Google usage has gone back up since they added the AI features. It's still not nearly what it was though.
Okay. One last thing about Google. We use Slides, we use Docs, we use Gmail. Go put your Gemini models in those. Help me out. Help a brother out cleaning up his email, doing some slideshow presentations and stuff. You could actually help us. And I don't even care if it's Gemini. You don't have to tell me.
Well, I have a Mastra agent that does my email, that manages my email for me. But I would love if Google just offered it to do it for me, right? Just let me define my rules, categorize everything, be my personal assistant in my inbox, and then, like notify me on Slack when there's important things that I've told you I care about. Follow up with me every day and tell me, here are the important emails you haven't responded to yet. There's not that many features you need to add for it to be super useful.
Yeah, of course, there's like Ask Gemini, but I want like purpose-built Google agents for all Google products,
Yeah, I want you just to like say like, hey, do you want to enable this on your email? And I say, yes. We spend 5 minutes together and you could probably manage my email better than I could, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have to care about it. Get in the game. All right, so OpenAI came out with an announcement, and they have a whole blog post. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but the quote is, Apple is getting this wrong, and then it linked to the long blog post around the Apple lawsuit. If you read, and of course this is OpenAI's take, so we're going to take this with a grain of salt. As much as you trust OpenAI, this is their take. But some of the evidence that they showed is actually kind of damning against Apple, and seems like Apple's overreaching a bit. So we haven't seen Apple's evidence, of course, but OpenAI was pretty public about sharing their evidence. And if you do read it, they're showing like Apple employees reaching out to new, fresh OpenAI employees that came from Apple, asking for them to help because they like, you're the only one that knows how to do this. Can you help? And Apple never revoked their access. So he's shared some things. He never used it in OpenAI, according to the text messages, and he was kind of explicit about that. But he helped former colleagues out at Apple answering questions. Like, that's one example of an example that they cited. Again, we'll see where it goes. Apple is not usually too lawsuit heavy, so you always wonder, like, maybe they have some things that OpenAI isn't sharing. But what OpenAI shared does seem like Apple is overreaching a bit.
Yeah. Plus, like, I don't know, there's like two weird things, because this article starts with like, Apple's the greatest company in the world, but this is very baseless accusations and stuff. And the second thing that I found was very weird is, why are you hitting up an old colleague to do anything? Like, that should be part of your offboarding. Like, once that person's gone from your company, they're not a resource anymore. So I would say that's really bad offboarding for a company like that.
I feel like it's like, it was like friends, like you,
Sure.
If you have a good friend and they leave, you might, and they're like the expert, you might hit them up and ask them a question. I think that's kind of harmless. But the fact that he could upload things and still have access to systems, like if you're a startup and that happens, it's kind of understandable. Like, you don't have the process in place. If you're Apple and that happens, what the fuck are you doing?
But also, if you're that employee, why are you even doing it, regardless of the offboarding?
Yeah. You should have just been like, hey, I have access to these systems. I shouldn't. I don't want to do it.
I'm not trying to get caught up.
Especially if you know there's like potential contention there, potential competitive nature. I mean, ultimately, if you are in this situation, when you leave the company, you don't want access to anything, just what's in your head, because then you don't never have to worry about it. And in places like California and most states in the US, as long as all you took is what was in your head, you're fine. Like, there's nothing wrong. But if you took one file that had a little bit of information, you could be screwed. So
this is the new social engineering ploy. When your friend leaves, just try to get all the secrets from their file systems. Oh my God. Something
we use quite a bit. Suno has lost its copyright infringement legal case. This is from the Munich Regional Court. So I guess it's found that it was a breach of both German and US copyright laws. So now Suno will need to pay damages, but the sum has not been confirmed. The ruling also means that other AI companies must now pay to license any music. So we'll see what the end amount is, but I bet it's going to be substantial. Yeah, dude. They had Mambo number 5, Forever Young. They all use these without license to train the model. So I mean, a lot of the stuff leaked, and there was quite a bit. We will see what it ends up meaning. Like, Suno's very well funded, so I'm sure they're going to be okay. Yeah. And I guess here's the thing: if Suno is okay, and Anthropic's been okay, OpenAI's been okay, they've all lost these copyright suits. It kind of just validates that one reasonable path is just ask for forgiveness later. Whether you like that or not, that is what all this is proving to me. Is like, you can just use things, and when you get your wrist slapped, you pay the fine, and life goes on. If you have the funds, right? Yeah. I mean, at the same time, Google has a Flow Music that's actually pretty good. So they're not the only game in town, Did they pay for a license for? I wonder. I would imagine they would, because they'd probably be a little more careful. But that's the thing, is like, Suno started as a startup, right? If they never got anywhere before they hit this like copyright infringement issue, they'd probably then they would just die out. But they got really popular, and now they have the funds to probably fight it and pay for it. So Not sure I like that or don't like that, but that feels like that's the way it is. Is like apparently you just do things, then ask for forgiveness later.
I mean, no wonder Suno is so good. So
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They use all the good. They used all the hits.
yeah, dude, they use Mambo number 5. That shit's so good.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the quick hits. We got quite a few of them today. This was yesterday. Mark Zuckerberg said, we're releasing Muse code in beta today. It's a terminal coding agent that takes on complete software engineering tasks across large repos, planning changes, writing code, validating the results, powered by MuseSpark 1.2, a coding-focused model update. You can see here the benchmarks. It's close to Opus 5 level on a few, just below GPT-5.6 on a couple others. And then it's funny, Meta internal coding benchmark. It's not even first. But I guess maybe that's respect to you. You didn't make your models number 1 on the benchmark, but it looks like it's second to Opus 5. The thing here is, it's probably actually a pretty good model. The question is, do you have enough credibility at this point for anyone to actually move from Codex or from Claude Code?
I don't think so. There's like so much UX to build, and I don't know. It's almost like maybe some of us are moving away from terminal coding agents now too, and then you're just entering the game. So
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, we were seeing more and more evidence of people wanting to run workloads on the cloud, right?
Yeah.
A percentage of their tasks, right? Just the coding agent runs in the cloud. Maybe you can interact with it, but you're not interacting with it through a terminal. I've always suspected, terminal UIs were not going to be the end result of coding agents because it felt like we were in the terminal stage of, like the DOS era of AI. And now people naturally want things that feel comfortable and, there are always going to be engineers that love the terminal. Like I like the terminal. There are some things where I actually do enjoy just hopping in the terminal, getting work done. If you've been watching the whole time, we showed a video of clips from the AI4 conference. I just literally had my coding agent Mastra code build that video for me with FFmpeg. I just put a whole bunch of images and videos and it just built it in literally 2 minutes before the show started. So like that kind of task, it's cool. Like I want to use a terminal for things like that. I want to feel like a power user, right? I want to feel like a developer. I want to be the hacker with the hoodie,
Yeah.
There's always going to be people like us that want that. But most people are not that. They want the simple thing. They want the good UI, the simple UX. I've had people try to convince me that everyone's going to use Claude Code. Your PM doesn't want to use Claude Code. Your marketing folks don't want to use Claude Code. But maybe they can use some kind of cloud coding agent and an engineer can come in if needed and fix things and improve things. We'll see. But I think they're fighting an uphill battle. So this came out. Ilya, Safe Superintelligence, is reporting that they're planning to launch its first model in August. So
Sick.
Let's see how it does. They've been working on building a more safe model. Ilya from OpenAI. We will see what comes of it. It's kind of funny that it makes the news when it's just like reported. I think it's important because I think there's a lot of hype and a lot of background around what Ilya has done in the past. So I think a lot of people are waiting.
Yeah, you kick Sam Altman out, get your own model, got a long list of things. I just hope it's not a flop, dude.
My prediction is it's going to be. But prove me wrong, Ilya.
I think it's going to be a flop, dude.
I want you to prove me wrong, but it just feels like, there's just so many good models, right? What if it comes out and it's like Muse level? Well, then it's just like there's already so many models in that category.
It'll probably be better than Gemini, but
it's going to be right above Gemini, below everything else. Another slap in the face for Gemini. So Prime Intellect introduced Prime Agent, a self-improving RLM harness for coding and long-running autonomous tasks, designed to be both token-efficient and expressive through programmatic tool calling, context as a variable, multi-agent messaging, and self-modifiable harness state. So Prime Intellect's gone from they had some models, right, that they've been releasing that have benchmarked really well, surprisingly, but I still don't know a lot of people that are using it. And now they're doing a bit more on some like harness stuff.
They've been doing training and inference.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I got to play with it.
Yeah, could be cool. An internal version of Astra, OpenAI's next major model, solved 10 major open problems in mathematics, quantum complexity, and theoretical computer science. So they said that we believe it will be a major step forward for scientific reasoning.
Damn.
Which is pretty wild if true. I did see some rumors that Astra, which they may call GPT-6, I don't think it's been determined yet, but this version, this Astra, is potentially coming out next week. So we will see. We will all be waiting. Maybe we'll be getting another OpenAI model very soon.
Yeah, we're going to get the Ilya model, OpenAI model. We'll see what Anthropic tries to do.
Well, and Anthropic just launched 5, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they gotta have a Fable update or something. Probably
We're gonna
up
get
their
Haiku
sleeves.
5, dude. Sonnet 5.5.
I gotta imagine there's a Fable update coming, right? They have to.
for sure.
They have to be coming up with something there. But it's a bit of an arms race. You know, this is
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, and we're all here observing. Cloudflare announced Cloudflare Computer. So agents need more than just a container to scale. We're introducing Cloudflare Computer, which is an agent runtime that dynamically orchestrates between fast, efficient isolates and full Linux containers to give every agent a computer of its own. GenSpark open source GenOffice. I don't know if we need another Office product, but there's now an open source Office product that has AI built in. So if you want to get off Google Docs, Google Slides, all that, and you want to have like a first-class agent experience, they're trying to build it. I don't know how good it is. It looks exactly like you would expect if Google Slides just added an agent in the sidebar. So I don't know what the innovation was other than like, Google, why didn't you just add the agent in the sidebar? Maybe you would have,
Dude,
prevented
one
this.
engineer, 1 week, $10,000 of tokens. That's all it takes, Gemini.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
I mean, Gemini, you could have done this in at least 6 months, I thought this post was interesting. This is from Thibault from OpenAI or from Codex. Turns out GPT-5.6 Sol is actually state-of-the-art on Arc AGI 3, and it took 2 settings changes. So I think what's interesting here is that this just proves that the harness does matter. The settings that the harness uses actually matters. So if you have a harness and you're trying to accomplish a specific task, you shouldn't just assume that every harness is created equal, which is also probably some of the reasons that you sometimes see Claude models with a different harness perform better on a benchmark than Claude Code. But not every benchmark, right? It's dependent on what do you want that agent to actually do? What kind of code is it writing? And the harness does matter for some of that stuff. All right. Took us a minute, but stacked PRs are now on GitHub. This is from GitHub, July 30th. Took you more than a minute, GitHub.
What, 10 years is quite a long minute, to be honest. But
yeah, have you used any stacked PRs yet on GitHub?
yeah, we're using it in OSS right now. So I mean, it's cool.
So I've noticed the pancake icon.
Yeah,
How does someone use stacked PRs? Just tell your agent to do it,
that's what I do.
and then it just stacks them with GitHub.
Yeah, and you can also through the UI you can stack them as well. So I don't know. We've been doing this stuff without this feature, so I guess now it's officially stacked. But
Yeah, we just basically been stacking them without the UI affordances that GitHub's added. If you're paying attention in the chat, have you used stacked PRs yet? Did it live up to the 10 years of hype, or at least the last 2 years? It's been on everyone's mind. That's the news. Make sure you follow us on X at Mastra. You can check us out on YouTube, Mastra-AI. You can follow me at smthomas3 on X. Follow at Abhi Aiyer on X. Send us a message. If you think we missed anything in the news, let us know. We like to talk about things. So if we have stuff to talk about, share with us. All right, dude. We'll see you
Peace.
later. See you, everyone.